Welcome to Thinking Green. I'm Rana. And usually this show is very focused on local organizations, New London or Southeastern Connecticut-based endeavors. And today we're going to stretch out a little. I mean, there's a local connection, but we're going to be thinking a lot more globally. And my guest today, thank you for joining me, Itancan Wasaka.
Yeah.
And whom is Wasaka to me, who is going to talk about a World Academy for the Future of Women, and it's on a much broader scale than New London, and I'm mostly just going to hand it over to him. So welcome, Wasaka, and go for it.
Thank you, Rana. My name is Itancan Wasaka, but Itancan just means chief, because I only have one name, Wasaka. But no forms in the United States will let me proceed with only one name. And they all have alternate mechanisms to handle that. But it's like 90 days, Try to get a driver's license without a first name. You got to go through a whole special exception process, file your taxes, do anything. So I went back to the courts and made my first name be Chief, but I did it in Lakota, Itancan. So it's not really my name. My name is Wasaka.
I'll call you Wasaka, but there was a little bit of a question, like your email address. You have the title on, and I'm sure it is less confusing for bureaucrats you have to deal with in any walk of life.
Well, yeah, it is. It's just, every time I go to one of the healthcare providers, everybody requires two names. They just require it. So after that, I stopped giving people in the tribe one name. They all get two names. Dancing butterfly, whatever. Yeah. We do it in Lakota because we're a Siouan tribe. But I'm excited to be here today because I want to talk about the most exciting program I've ever seen. And I've traveled the world multiple times over, worked overseas, Europe, Asia, and I've never seen anything that compares to this. And I wanted to share it with everybody, and I think it has a direct impact on those of you watching as well, because it presents an opportunity for you to have some fun. But before I get into it, let me just talk a little bit about where it starts. So just sit back and imagine that you're a 13-year-old girl, and your mother wants to find you a husband, because that's normally what they do. He's probably going to be older, 40, 42. This may horrify us, but it's normal there in Nepal. And she wants to find you a husband so that he can take care of you for the rest of your life. Your mother's happy because she's just getting ready to get you, the daughter, established for the rest of your life. Now, currently you work in the fields from sun up to sundown, and that will continue with your new family because they're going to expect that too. And in fact, helping your new family is going to be more important than education or anything. So that's the future you have looked forward to the rest of your life, just like your mother did. And that's normal. This was actually Rita Tamang's wife. She's one of the people we got to know. Can you put the picture up of Rita? Just for a little bit, but I'll keep talking.
Sure.
So she was from Sindhupalchik district in Nepal, which is halfway between Kathmandu and Everest. It's at about 7,000 feet. So This is Rita. And when her mother told her that she was getting ready to find her a husband, she kind of went ballistic, to say the least, which was very, very unusual, particularly in the mountains, which is where the Sindhupalchik is. You do what your family wants. You do what your mother tells you. You support your family. And she completely reacted against that. So by the time she turned 14, within the year, she completely on her own left Sindhupalchik and made the long trip to Kathmandu, the capital city, to try to find work and to see if she could earn enough money to get herself educated, because it was very expensive. The family certainly couldn't pay for it. They had to work constantly just to get by. And she managed to do it. She wound up negotiating with the headmaster at the school over and over and over again until he finally dropped the price so low she could afford to attend based on the meager amount she could earn. And so she did a full-time load and worked.
This is at age like 14 or 15.
She's 14.
That's impressive.
3 years later, she joined the Imadal Cultural Center in Kathmandu, where my wife was teaching the World Academy. World Academy for the Future of Women, but we just call it World Academy for short. And Rita volunteered to join, to enroll in the class. It's an extremely demanding class. I'll explain that in a little bit, but she signed up. And she, as you can imagine, has an absolutely unstoppable will. And one of the things they wound up doing was they created her and her fellow classmates. They all agreed this was a horrible problem. The mothers did not understand they were condemning their children to these horrible lives like theirs, and they needed to do something about it. So they wrote a little screenplay, or a play, and with my wife Leslie's help, they then took that play from Kathmandu out to the little villages in the Shendapalchik district and put it on, did a little performance play for the mothers of that area. And they really created, I mean, the mothers were shocked. They didn't realize that's what was happening with their daughters. And they changed everybody. By this time, she was 17.
Imagine changing a whole district's, mindset.
Right.
At age 17.
Right. She's another Malala or Thornburg or whatever. The cool part is the program helped develop her to be very effective. And that's really what I want to talk about, is the program she participated in and what this does for young women. And if we could do it for somebody who was relatively illiterate when she started, it is very impressive. So the World Academy for Future Women was started in 2009. Let me not get ahead of myself here. It was started in 2009 in China, Zhengzhou, China, home of COVID.
Well, at least it's known for something positive.
And it's at CS International University, which is a 35,000 student full university. It's a very big university. Half the students are not from China. It's international, all of the Belt Road Initiative China runs. So you're being educated with a very high class people, and they're used to teaching in multiple languages. So they may teach in Mandarin, but they'll give translators if you need it, et cetera. And now World Academy is done entirely in English. So we interview to make sure they at least have a working knowledge of English. But we can get them translators readily if that's a problem, but we want to take them anyway. So it's an interview process by which they're accepted. We typically take up to 130 students in a year, an academic year. At least 100. We won't start it if we can't get 100, but it's only been a problem in Nepal, which is pretty small anyway. And when the program's unknown, it's harder for students to sign up. From Zhengzhou, China in 2009, it then expanded into Nepal a few years later. And then 2 years after that, went into Bangladesh, and Dhaka, Bangladesh, at ULAB, the University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh. And my wife was involved in that one in actually opening up the program at ULAB. So she went in and set it all up with the vice president and all that sort of thing. And
so what was the original inspiration for starting this program?
The founder, I'm not entirely sure. I've never asked her the question, strangely enough. But I know the founder reasonably well, Jerry Uberly. She's from Phoenix, Arizona. And she went over, she really felt particularly poor women around the world were treated so badly, she wanted to do something about it. And she had a friend who opened the university, and soon after he formed CS International University, which is about 22 years ago now, she got with him and made this proposal, and he helped her shape the proposal so that it would work. And that's what got it started. And now there's been like 1,000 graduates. I mean, it's a very successful program. And they hold a symposium of graduates there every year, and the attendees is now up to about 10,000 people attend. And they have, like, the Chinese head of Google presented one year. But it's a major, major event, because anybody that's working certainly in the Asia area knows the people coming out of this program are to be fought for. That if they not only graduated from college, but they had this tremendous leadership program they participated in. And in fact, it's a heavy load for a student to carry. It's 15 hours, scheduled hours a week, 10 minimum. But the ones who do well tend to put in 15 scheduled, and then there's outside hours beyond that. On top of a full course load, that's quite a burden. And it's not a 4-credit course, it's an honors program. It's not academic. It's leadership coaching. So as the founder likes to say, we grow leaders. You know, we build leaders. We don't just teach them. We help them discover who they are inside, what their passion is, and build on that to grow them into leaders. Let me just check the...
I know that before the camera started rolling, we were talking a little bit about how worldwide, like the women of the world are an untapped resource.
Yes. I'm also a strong believer that, to me it seems obvious, but a lot of people don't seem to get it, that wouldn't society be a lot better if we empowered everybody to the maximum extent they could be, so that they could fully develop every capability they had and wanted to, without limitation, except themselves? It seems so obvious. Companies would be so much more productive if they allowed the women to really rise to their full potential and not hold them back, with less pay, less promotional opportunities. It's getting better in the U.S. It's getting better actually everywhere in the world, but very slowly. And we need to accelerate it. And I think it's pretty well known. Maybe it's not well known. The most advanced countries in the world, the ones that do the best, are run by women. The prime ministers are women. A lot of the chief members of the executive branch of the government are women. New Zealand or Denmark, or you name it. The most progressive, the most inspiring countries whose government really got it together, really take care of the people, are run by women. And I think I think society today is overbalanced with testosterone. And we need to get back to much more of a 50-50 balance. That the courage and drive of men is admirable, but not to say that women can't have drive and courage, but that tends to be a given male characteristic. But now it just typifies business, it typifies everything, and it's just excessive. And it needs more of a balance of collaboration and teamwork, and that's something women bring to the table much better than men do.
Yeah, there's generally, without generalizing too much, just a different approach towards problem solving, I think.
Right. Women tend to, or socialize actually, I think, to collaborate more. So try to get everybody involved. Hey, let's find the best solution to this problem. And men compete and want to lead and want the authority to tell you what to do. Where women don't need that. And for the most part. I mean, some do.
Some do, yeah.
Certainly not.
I know I've been in groups that are male-led and groups that are women-led, and there's a much different feel to the meetings. Even the format of the meetings is a little bit different.
Well, I don't think it's controversial, but women, in my experience, women tend to listen much better than men do. Men are thinking of the next thing they want to say, And, you know, and women actually carefully listen to make sure they really understand the nuances of what you're saying. And typically men don't do that very well. Now, some do, of course. We have men who teach World Academy. The founder was very afraid to let men even be involved when my wife was doing it a few years ago. And but she's opened up in the meantime and discovered, and the students demanded it. You know, they said, my brother should be part of this. He wants to be part of this movement to uplift everybody, not just women, you know. And they've had facilitator men for quite a while, with some nervousness, like an experience my wife had. The very first week in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, when they opened the program. And what the first thing they do in the program before it starts is they recruit from the ranks of the 100 women who signed up. They recruit those who would like to be in a leadership position with the class. There's like 10 of them. And then, so she would interview them all and agree on which 10 it would be. And then one of them, she was determined would be the leader. I don't remember what they called him, but the leader of the class. And so she wasn't there a couple days, and I forget the woman's name now, but she came back to Leslie. She's like 21 years old, right? And the vice president who runs the school, so he's the big cheese. And it's a pretty wealthy school. It's privately owned. But the young woman comes back to Leslie and goes, the vice president basically sexually groped her and everything. And Leslie's, oh my God. And it always got very specific to understand exactly what happened. And she said, I need to show you leadership right now. I want to go back and talk to him with you. And so in hand, she went over to the vice president and said, I understand this is a different culture and certain things are acceptable in your culture, but sexually accosting a student is not acceptable with World Academy. And if this continues, we'll have to withdraw from your school. Can you stop doing that? And he was taken. Nobody, I guess, had ever spoken back to him. But you know Leslie, she's not a shrinking violet. But she hit it right in the face, and he backed off and never did it again, and became.
And he was bright enough to really get the hint.
Oh, well, it wasn't much of a hint, but well, it was more like a brick in the side of the head. But he recognized that, okay, he really wanted the program. It's a very highly valued program at the universities. So this is something they can give their students that they can't get anywhere else. And so that was tremendous. But that's the kind of stuff you run into, you know.
Oh.
And so it's, as I said, it's expanded out to Nepal. At the moment, we have memorandums of understanding, which is the agreement we make with the university. And we have 2 in India, in the Mumbai, both are in the Mumbai area. We have 1 in South Africa, 1 in Kenya, 1 in Zambia, and I'm working on 2 or 3 between the U.S. and Canada. So I've just briefly started talking with the chief of one of the First Nations up in Ontario, and so she's interested in furthering the discussion. And so I want to go with her to the University of Toronto, which is a very prestigious international school. And then I'm also working my way to the president of Yale, because they already have a women's program, but it's only 4 days long. They teach leadership. This would tack onto their program so phenomenally well, I can't see straight. And if he doesn't want to do it, there's other universities.
Right.
UConn,
But that one seems kind of natural, that it would just really allow them to offer what they already do, but more.
And really up it. And they say they're really for the development of women, and they really support indigenous people, Indians and black people. And so this is put your money where your mouth is kind of a thing. But it should check all the boxes they're interested in. And then also I'm working with Reverend Gwendolyn Montgomery, to meet with representatives of all of the historic black colleges and universities, and we'll find one to start to work with them as well. And so my goal would be to have one in Ontario, one in Connecticut, and one at a historic black college, and Howard, whatever, and get those going the following academic year. So not this fall, but the following fall. So that's why I'm doing a training this summer in August to train up facilitators to be able to deliver this program. And it's really interesting. In India, we have one leader who's trying to get into two different groups in India, two different universities, and they want to collaborate together. And what do I know? I'm not an expert in Indian affairs, but one group comes from the very highest social caste, the Brahmin caste, and the other one's from the untouchables. So we're trying to envision, how's this going to work when they get together? They have problems in American universities with the caste system for Indians. So, not surprisingly, it started to fall apart when we tried to put the program together with the two sides. But they're still talking and they still want to do something. So we think they're going to start something this fall.
Well, honestly, anything that has as its goal being transformational is going to threaten status quo in some area or other, wherever you are.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you see these young women, like in China, they can't even look you in the eye when you meet them. They come in there, 18, 17, like that, and they're very, very meek, and they don't stand up, and the whole culture is don't stand out. And so one of the first things you get to do is stand up in front of the class and talk about what you're passionate about. Nothing.
Yeah.
And you have to really pull it out of them to get them. Rita was unusual in that regard. She already knew what she cared about, but the stupid child bride program. But it doesn't make any difference. So you need facilitators who are very empathic. That's a critical requirement. Teachers tend to be. That's what draws them to the profession in the first place. But a lot of business people actually are. And so it really pulls people out anyway, is the whole point of that. The program itself is 1 year in duration. But very early on, the graduates demanded they get another year. There's not 4 years. It's a whole 4 years. You can exit anytime you like. We'd like you to stick through the first year. And if you don't want to continue, that's fine. Most go on and at least do 2 years. And the second year, it's like, okay, you establish you're a leader in the first year. Now let's do something really big so, on the international stage. And so one of the cool things they do is they first get them to understand that they're not just a citizen of their country, they're a citizen of the world. And as such, the United Nations has come together with their Sustainable Development Goals. And so they have them handy and look through all these and see which ones resonate with you. Instead of working for your life just to make some money to live, what if you could make a change and change the world as part of what you do? It's so much more fulfilling and rewarding than just working to earn enough money to eat and live. So it's not about getting rich, but it's about making an impact on the world and making the world a better place. And so these young women really buy into that. And each program, they establish projects in that local area, Zhengzhou, China, for example, that then becomes ongoing. So the next year, they up it a little bit, expand the program in the community, and continue on. So the program Rita started in Nepal picked up and continued on. So that became a standard program. So another woman coming into the program could say, oh, I'd like to participate in that program in my first year. Then when the second year comes, it's okay, now what program do you want to start? And really expand it. And it's all tied back to the UN. And that's the founder, who is very frustrated that with all the development goals set out by the UN, which is the country's responsibilities to implement, not one country has implemented one. I guess for a cynic like me, I'm not surprised. But politicians squared at the UN.
Well, I think really, whether you're working at a local or global level, it's often the passionate people who aren't doing it for money who are doing a lot of that, the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy if the government does things like pick up trash and plow the roads
Yeah.
and deal with the basic infrastructure needs of a society living together. But a lot of the things that inspire us, that comes from someplace else.
Yeah, I mean, politicians who are actual leaders are few and far between. They happen. You know, look at Ukraine, for example, but the comedian stepped up. But it's unusual. It's very unusual. And with the way well, particularly in the United States, where the election cycles every couple of years for Congress, and then on top of that, you spend full time basically running for your next election. So you don't have time to do anything but understand what the people giving you the money want. And you know, you may have some principles. You just try to see which ones can get picked up by the people giving you money.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No, it's not. It's not.
Now, you provided us with a couple of videos, one with a facilitator experience and one
yeah,
with a
first
graduate experience, and I wonder if we want to show one of them.
Yeah, the first one, is the facilitator video, just is a number of different facilitators talking about what their experience was like. I think that's really good.
Okay, if we could show that video, that would be great.
Yeah.
Being at CIAS, the students are so motivated, so engaged. Many of them are the first ones to have any education of any significance in their family or their town or their village.
My life is different from a lot of my childhood friends. I was able to leave the village and see the life outside the village, and I was able to understand there's a different way to live a life.
I think one of the things I wasn't expecting was the passion and excitement of the women. When you're teaching, you don't always get that level of engagement and excitement, and so that was really refreshing.
The level of students that are graduating from the academy is very impressive. You can give them direction and they take it and run with it, and they come back and surprise you time and time again with exceeding the expectations.
That is what companies are looking for nowadays. They are looking for people who are driven by themselves, this eagerness to develop for something bigger.
We are really grateful to the facilitators, the mentors, the guests who helped us in our life, because they opened the window for us to see a bigger world.
Susanna Ma was probably the first woman that I met and saw her speak in public. Most people I meet in China are really timid in front of the microphone, but I remember she got up and grabbed the microphone, and she was so bold and loud and confident, and somebody was in the crowd that day and hired her. If she didn't have the skills from the World Academy, she wouldn't have nailed that opportunity.
Everybody who is coming in to give of their time and their expertise are doing this as volunteers.
The 5 weeks I had spent at the academy were probably the most valuable 5 weeks I've spent in my life.
Even though you go there to teach those kids, you get so much out of it. I came back with a renewed admiration for the young generation.
They really care. It's not just all about them. They're really looking at the big picture and how they can make a difference.
It's a crazy experience, but it is life-changing, and it is something that you will probably never have the opportunity to do anywhere else.
I think the benefit for facilitators is not just the connection to China, but the connection to a really incredible network of people that give of their time, give of their talent, and care about the world.
this got us all excited about being involved with the program as a mentor or a facilitator. You mentioned COVID, and what is the current status of the program with us just barely coming out of a pandemic?
Well, yes, we're trying to. All Asia was pretty well shut down completely, and in fact, my wife still has very strong connections with graduates that she mentors in Bangladesh and China and all. And we had one who left, who was finally able to leave from Shanghai. She was in lockdown 6 weeks continuous because the government policy was if anybody in your apartment block has COVID, you must quarantine for 14 days. An apartment block is 10,000 people.
Well, there were really strict rules there.
Very
really strict.
She was under lockdown continuously for, I believe it was 6 weeks, a little over 6 weeks. Her associate was also, but she was at work at the hospital and she couldn't come home. She had to sleep in the nurse's station and just couldn't come home for 6 straight weeks. So they canceled all visas when they shut down. So my visa, which is a 10-year visa, and it's got like 6 years to run, well, not anymore. It's done. I have to reapply for a visa to get back there. And so we're expecting, they've come out of it so fast, we're expecting them to reopen this fall. I don't mean to be too negative, but personally, I wouldn't go there this fall myself for two reasons. One, everybody has COVID. And I don't trust the Chinese government to be super forthcoming if it's bad news on how many people have COVID or how many people are dying from COVID. They're clearly going to understate the data as best they can, one. And then two, with all the geopolitical hassles going back and forth, they could decide to just shut the border in a heartbeat, and they go that fast. So you could be over there and really get stuck, like Americans in Russia when they decided to invade Ukraine. I mean, it was like...
You know, we have a local guy, Glenn Cheney, you might know him, that was actually visiting Chernobyl when the Soviet Union disbanded, and he was not sure for quite a while how he was going to get out because the government that gave him his visa was no more.
Yeah.
He did get back, and I don't remember how, but that kind of thing really does happen to people.
Oh, yeah.
They're political unrest, you're in the wrong place.
So I'm not up for going this fall. Some people are more adventurous than me, perhaps. I've been over there. The Chinese government, in fact, paid me a couple of years ago. They held a big TED Talk, international TED Talk thing on education, the future of education. It's called the International Summit on the Future of Education. And so I did a talk on science, renewable energy, sustainable construction, and the job opportunities that presented for people. And that was great. They paid my way over, paid my hotel, gave me a little vacation afterwards and all that. They can be very nice. And the government is like all smiles until they want to change something. And they change things on a dime. So they catch everybody. It's like, oh, pivot left. And it's a huge shift. And it just can really catch you off guard. It's not always malevolent in its intention.
Now, you mentioned that there are MOUs, you know, in South Africa and Zambia and Kenya, other parts of Africa, and there's also, you know, new endeavors perhaps in Canada and the U.S. Are they proceeding, I don't know, as expected, or is the pandemic really slowing that as well?
Most of the world's coming out of the pandemic, so we haven't seen anything in Africa to slow it down, but Africa, all the African countries won't open until 24, 25 year, not this fall. India may open, at least one of the universities may open this fall. It's iffy at this stage. I do not have memorandums of understanding in the US or Canada yet. I've just started the process. I only asked a couple months ago if I could open in the U.S. or North America, and because they've kind of avoided it. I think the founder didn't think Americans needed it. And I said, well, white Americans like you don't need it. And so she kind of sat back in her chair. And said,
Americans certainly do need that diversity of leadership that much better reflects the skills
right.
and the backgrounds
right.
of everyone
right.
who's here.
And yeah, in fact, let me talk about how the program works.
Yeah, let's talk about how the program works and the curriculum, and then we have another video
yep.
about the graduates, the
right.
alumni.
Who talk? Yeah. So the first piece is, as I said, our objective is to grow leaders, not teach them. We do teach them, but we teach them skills. So it's more like developing somebody into a good skier. You can give them a great class, but they're not going to be much of a skier. So we teach them, I'll go through it in a few minutes, but we go through a lot of different skills you need in terms of how do you build a team, how do you deal with conflicts within a team, how do you interview people to see what their fit is in forming a team, how do you lead the team, how do you stuff like that. I'll go through each module
Sure.
in detail, but it's basically the year is broken into 8 modules, which is matched up against the academic year, so it matches the school year of the university we're at. And as I said, they go 10 to 15 hours a week, quite a load. We tend to lose some of the participants just because they can't handle the load. It's just too much. And I don't know, certainly in Asian cultures, one problem we ran into, particularly in Nepal, was their mothers would just not let them go. And when we complained to the university, they go, well, we can't get them to go to class either. Well, sorry, we don't give awards for participation. So we try to figure that out, though, when we interview them, to let them know what they're in for. It's not a surprise, and that it's really serious work. If you do the work, you can't help but develop. But it's very challenging, and it'll make you very uncomfortable because it's going to put you way outside your comfort zone, or you'd already be a leader. And you may have some innate abilities. And the first year is really the core of the program itself. And if you did nothing but the first year, it would be sufficient to really get you on your way. But as I said, they all want more. They just want to, they enjoy it so much. And I'll tell you, it's astounding when you meet them at the beginning of the year when they're entering the program and they're shy, and then at the end of the year when they stand up like at the symposium and speak, which the better ones do, in front of 10,000 people.
I don't think I'd want to do that. That would take me out of my comfort zone.
Oh yeah, when it's that big, you can't even make out the faces of the people in the back. It's huge, but they do it with power, strength and power. It's very impressive. They know who they are, and it's not an arrogant thing at all. It's just a solid grounding that they have in who they are and what they're trying to do and what they can do. And as I say, one of the things that's worked on by the third module is to connect them with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, so that they can see their life as a greater purpose in the whole world and how to tie into it. So it's been very helpful to not just think of something, but think of something that is acknowledged to be an important thing to do in the world. And people, I'm the first one to criticize the United Nations, but they're politicians. First and last, they're politicians. And they're very skilled politicians, meaning to do everything politicians do well, they do even better for the most part. Including some of the things you tend not to like about politicians. But if you think of from the United Nations perspective, Guterres' perspective, the Secretary General, his members are the 200 countries of the world, right? And they were formed after World War II to try to limit the amount of people killed with war. That was the fundamental point of the United Nations.
That's a worthy goal.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So in terms of talking to somebody so that's done through the ambassadors to the United Nations who carry the flag for that country in terms of working towards those goals. And of course, every country is, not every, but most countries are just as independent as the US is. Well, you can't tell me what to do, and da-da-da-da-da. You go through all that crap. But they're right. It's just a difficult problem of getting the countries to then follow in and follow suit. And that's where we can help. So the World Academy has consultant status with the United Nations. In fact, I'm going there Monday. The 2 weeks that start the Commission on the Status of Women in New York at the United Nations starts Monday. And so I'm part of the UN team with the World Academy. And so I don't really think I'll get that much out of it other than meeting a lot of other people who want to collaborate. And there are people coming from all over the world for this conference. So about 2,500 people. And so there's a team of 11 of us. Most of them flew in for this. I'm just going to train it because I can.
Yeah. We're lucky here. A couple hours from the city.
It is. The United Nations is, you can see we're not we meaning non-ambassadors are not at the top of their agenda. The last one in December, they rescheduled 3 times. And this is after people made hotel reservations, got plane tickets, and like 2 weeks before they changed the date by 2 weeks. So not even close. And then the week before they changed something yet again. And I wasn't planning to go to that when I had a conflict, but like the founder was going, she just wound up going to New York. She said, I can't reschedule again. It's like, I just can't do that. She said, I'm just going to go to New York and see if I can get any meetings or something with people. And the week I'm scheduled, not the week of the conference. And so it's pretty funny that way. But there's a lot of NGOs all over the world who come in for this event. And it's a chance to collaborate with them. And they're from schools, academics. Like there's a big program, even in the US, at ASU, Arizona State University. The Sustainability Goal Office on the campus tries to guide students in the direction of the UN Sustainability Goals. So there's a lot of resonance with that. And a lot of the countries, around the world are interested in developing the female part of their population, that they recognize, the government officials recognize that's been held back. And same with academia. Like in Africa, Neil Turk was a physicist, who I know that way, did some work, over 5 years ago now, trying to bring science to African universities, and he succeeded. They are now graduating world-class scientists, physicists particularly, but scientists, mathematicians, all over Africa at the major universities. And now the guy we're working with in Africa wants to do the same thing with women's leadership. So he's trying to bring our program in. He's working all 3 countries. And he says he wants to do them all, and we said, sort of. Start with 3.
Well, so we don't run out of time. I think I'm going to ask to put on the video with the graduates, just so you get a picture of some of the people who have been through the program.
Thank you. That's good.
When I was in college, I was inspired by the student academy member on the stage. She was translating for 600 people. She was awesome, and then I wanted to be someone like her.
When I was a sophomore, I was a person who was very shy and full of fears and didn't feel confident. So I was feeling quite upset about my situation by that time, so I wanted to make some change.
Before I joined the World Academy, my world is very small. Like I only focus on myself. But after I joined that, my world is very big. Facilitators, mentor, their love influence me, impact me to think about others.
You can see the difference between World Academy alumni and World Academy members than other traditional education Chinese girls.
I can dream big, I can think big, not just do my daily job, but I was able to think out of the box. It's the World Academy prepared me. It's let me have that mindset.
The World Academy brings the awareness to people, the awareness of women, the awareness of social justice and gender equality.
From the academy, I learned gratitude, I learned generosity,
leadership skills,
like managing team,
time management, prioritizing,
running efficient meetings.
Be inspired and be grateful and be generous.
I was able to open my heart.
It always encourages me and support me, make me feel at home, always.
Most importantly, I got the ability to love myself and people around me. That's something that I've been critical with myself for such a long time. And Academy helped me to discover who I am and to define my life.
It's not only the people teaching you, it's not only Jerry or our mentor facilitator teaching you, Kang, you should do this. No, they are doing it. They are doing it in their way. Then step by step to find out which one is suitable for you to use. And then you find yourself.
I got to practice what I've learned, and I realized that as an individual, I can make a big difference as well. I can help other people.
I felt like it because of me, because of what I learned in the academy, they were able to feel what is possible out there.
After I joined the World Academy, my parents respected me a lot with my decisions.
Before I joined the academy, the future would be finding a job, getting married. And now I see myself in bigger places.
I want to be a global leader. Yeah, this is a global leadership program. I think I'm really trained well to be a global leader.
I never think about this way before because I never know I have the chance. I never know I have the ability until I joined the World Academy. I see what is the world really look like. I see how many potential ability I can have. I know there will be a way for me if I tried my best, because World Academy already opened the door for me.
People are all inspired. What should people do if they're interested in getting involved?
First, drop me a line. If you're interested, send me an email. It's in the comments below on YouTube. You can see my email address. It's on the screen now. It's just my name, itanciawasaka@gmail.com. Surprisingly, Itanciawasaka was not taken already.
Amazing.
Yeah. Actually, I wasn't really stunned, but the way people principally get involved in the greatest quantities is as a facilitator, a leadership coach, teacher, etc. Unlike most programs of this type that I've ever seen, which usually charges a few $1,000s or $1,000 a week or something to participate, there's no charge at all. You just have to get yourself there. And if you can't do that, I'll find you a sponsor. One time we were really tight, so my wife just went out to, I forget which social media program it was, but crowdsourcing. But she very quickly got enough money to pay for her airfare. That's all, airfare and visa. The university takes care of you. That's our agreement with the university in exchange for bringing the program, is they house the facilitators and the staff, the World Academy staff. They put them on the meal program. They pick them up at the airport. So your ground expenses are all covered. I've heard some spending money, but Leslie went one time with $200, and she was there for 2 modules in succession, in 2 different countries. And she only had $200 spare.
So how much time of a time commitment is it for a person who goes over there?
It's a 5-week commitment. The first week, you're going to overlap with the previous module. You will never start on Module 1. The founder likes to do Module 1 herself because that's where you really anchor the students, and it's the most challenging. But once they're on the path, then you teach one of the 5 modules, one of the 7 of the 8 modules. So you overlap the previous module, and then you're on your own. But you get to meet the students and see them in action with the previous facilitator as you get started. So it's only 5 weeks.
How many students is each facilitator interacting with?
Between 100 and 130.
That's a lot of students.
That's why you're busy.
Yeah, that's a lot of students.
You're teaching several times a day. You hold office hours. There's consulting hours with them where you break them into smaller groups and work with them that way. You have to be very available to try to handle that many people well in the 4 weeks they have you. And I've been part of that. I haven't done it myself as a facilitator, but when China flew me over there, I then sat in on some of Leslie's classes and stuff like that. So the best way to get involved is as a facilitator. It's only 5 weeks, maybe 6 with travel and everything else. If it's an area you're interested in, it's worth spending an extra week or 2 so you can see the area, given you've gone to all the trouble to get there, wherever that may be, Kenya or China or whatever. And so that's the first way. Once you've facilitated just a couple modules, maybe even starting after the first, you can become a mentor as well, which can be done more long distance. But you now have a relationship, and you build pretty strong bonds in those 5 weeks. Believe me, it gets very intense. And so it's easy to mentor several people who will want to follow up with you. And to this day, Leslie doesn't. She's not been back there for 4 or 5 years. But as Leslie says, it'll change your life to do something like that.
And I'm guessing in addition to emailing you, the website is wafw.org. Very easy to remember. And there's less detailed information than we had tonight, but there is a lot of information about the program.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you want to find out clearly more in depth, just go to the website. It'll show you a lot. And I've almost filled the class for August anyway. In fact, I informed the founder that I'm going to need another class. And we don't want to do it during the beginning of the school year because all the facilitators who would teach facilitators are facilitating. So,
well, thank you so much for being on the show and talking about this amazing program. Next week we'll be back to kind of local stuff. Our guest will be Lena Agudelo, who is the executive director of Hispanic Alliance. And we're going to talk about everything Hispanic Alliance is up to these days. So thanks, Wasaka.
Thank you.
And I hope some of you are all inspired. It sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Don't